Talk to me. What was the mindset when you first announced that campaign?
Well, it really wasn't about necessarily lieutenant governor. It's really an opportunity to just continue to serve. I just feel like the last 6.5 years we've gotten so much done, and obviously I'm actually in favor of term limits. I think it's time for a group of people to come in, be able to put their stamp on those offices. So, you should start looking at opportunity to serve again. And so really the lieutenant governor was really the only race I thought that my skill sets, which is really dealing with people and building consensus, really fit. I'm certainly not a good auditor, treasurer, secretary of state candidate.
You've kind of spent a lot of time in these last 7 years out. You've been working with farmers, working with a lot of these smaller communities. How important is that for you as someone who could potentially step up in that lieutenant governor role to continue working in that sense with those communities that you've helped in your time as agriculture commissioner?
Well, I think you see how agriculture holds the state together. I mean, you bring in a new car dealership, which is huge and important, but it impacts 4, 5, 6 counties. The area of that county and maybe the areas. I mean, farmers in every county in the state, and a lot of times agriculture is what holds those rural counties together. And if we didn't have that in those counties, the drugstores, banks and everything. So, and a lot of times our farmers are the leaders of our churches and different things. So yeah, we're having actually some pretty challenging time now. Row crop farmers really are not doing well. Hadn't done well for 2 years. Cattle prices are out the roof, but poultry's doing fine. Yeah, but we need to have a good farming year this year. We're going to lose some farmers.
I want to ask you about the current state of agriculture. What have been in these last few months, in these last couple of years, what is the state? Where are we striving, and where could we use some work?
Well, one of the things is we've pivoted away from China, and China's pivoted away from us. They were buying tons of our corn and soybeans, and of course, obviously cotton, and so we have figured that out. And actually, I'm president of the Southern United States Trade Association, so I've actually been on trade mission to Vietnam, been on one to Hong Kong here recently, and so we're trying to work on some of these emerging nations to replace China. I mean, India's got more people than China does. We could get in there, but they're so protectionist. And that's the reason, as much as these tariffs might be painful for the short run, we've got to reset some of these trade agreements because they are not fair to Americans or American farmers at all.
So it would be fair to say that short-term tariffs have kind of hurt Alabama farmers?
Not yet, but it potentially could. I think but it's really the trade with China that we pivoted away from has been probably the biggest thing. Another thing we do very poorly in this country, and I blame NAFTA because that ship sailed, but we added a lot of value in this country, and now we're shipping stuff overseas, our cotton and soybean wholesale, and then we buy shirts and sheets and things back retail, and so it's just the dollar volume of shipping wholesale, selling wholesale, and then buying retail. The numbers just don't work. We need to add more value added back in this country.
Do you think long term with the tariffs that are currently set in place, and if we get more trades, that the Alabama agriculture scene could soon come from where we are now and continue to kind of push on up here?
I do, and there's some thinking that farmers were going to be the next millionaires. I mean, I heard that 10 years ago. It hadn't happened yet, but obviously the people that feed us are vitally important. As much as we do a great job in this country of honoring first responders and military and policemen, I'd like to ease farmers up there in that group a little bit, because we're not going to go along. Maybe you need a policeman every few years, maybe you never need a fireman, but you want them to be there. You need a farmer every day, multiple farmers every day. And I just hope, even though people complain about the price of food, in this country probably is the best value in the world, or probably the best value in the history of the world.
Mm-hmm. And I want to touch on something you talked about earlier, that farmers could potentially leave. What are those risks there if farmers do leave their jobs, if the market gets tough in these coming years?
Well, and of course, we just won't have that amount of product. And of course, y'all have had so much rain up here in North Alabama, that's been devastating to the beginning of this season. We've got people, we're looking at maybe 20% less cotton being planted this year than were planted last year. We had a few people that were planning on planting cotton, looking at soybeans or something else that had a little shorter season. So, yeah, we need to have a decent season. Of course, the president did help out. They actually had a supplemental payment to our corn, cotton, peanut, soybeans, wheat, and a few other crops, farmers to help make up some of the difference between what commodity prices were and what their production costs were. We need that new farm bill passed. We've got reference prices now that are 7, 8 years old, and so the cost of farmers has gone up so much in those 7, 8 years. A farmer could actually lose his crop, get the government payment, and still not be enough to keep him in business.
I know what it is, but for the camera, what is this new farm bill?
Well, they've got parts of it in the reconciliation that they're passing now, and so there's some really good things in there. Obviously, the farm bill is only about 18% farm. It's the other 82, 83% SNAP payments and other kind of payments, and so yeah, we don't need them messing with that 18%. We need to make sure that here is fully funded. And so it looks, what's come out of the House, I think, would be acceptable to our farmers.
I want to talk to you a little bit more about this lieutenant governor race. In these last few months, we've seen yourself, we've seen Secretary Allen, we've seen Wadsworth, we've seen a lot of people put their name in the hat for lieutenant governor. What do you think calls for the lieutenant governor seat? Why do you think it's kind of such a popular seat right now in the state?
Well, obviously, Coach Tuberville kind of cleared the governor's race, and so yeah, I think I don't feel like I'm that person with a lot of political ambition, but there are other people that do have that, and they're looking for the next race and the next race. I just feel like I've done so much as ag commissioner, and it's a year and a half away from me being done there, and I just got a lot left to give. I just talking to my family, and yeah, I'm just not ready to go to the House. I feel like my relationships with Coach Tuberville, my relationships with Senator Garland Gudger, it'll just serve Alabama well for the partnerships we'll create.
And, there could be more names. Have you heard anything about Mr. Wall? Have you heard if he's going to be running by any chance?
John called me last week. I don't remember if it was Thursday or Friday, but yeah, I think he's running. It's a free country. I like Wes. I like John. I like Nicole, so yeah, everybody wants to. There won't be but one elected though, so it doesn't matter how many people get in the race, so.
What have kind of been the things you're campaigning on? Have you thought about that, especially as we're now less than a year to the primaries?
I think what I just said about forming partnerships and moving Alabama forward, obviously we can get so much more done when we're all pulling in the same direction, and I feel like that's kind of my personality, is to build consensus, and so obviously I've done a lot in my 6.5 years. I think there'll be opportunities just like that. Some of the things that Lieutenant Governor Ainsworth did as far as workforce development, making Alabama military friendly, those were great things. We want to continue those and just build on it. I think, the challenges today probably won't be the same challenges we had 4 years ago from now. And so I think I'm just smart enough to kind of figure out where Alabama needs to be going. And of course, I've certainly have been in business so long, I'm against more state regulations, trying to see where we can reduce the burden on businesses to be successful.
You served as commissioner for the last 6.5, 7 years. Before that, you were mayor for
14.
Yeah, a decade and a half. If the voters do go a different direction, what have you thought about what happens next for you?
I've got a great life, great wife, good children that are successful. I think I would be great at being lieutenant governor, but I'll go on and do. God will close the door, He'll open another door, so I'm not concerned about that at all.
Is there anything else you would like to add today?
Well, I appreciate you having me. I appreciate the people in North Alabama. Obviously, we did really, really well up here when I ran 7 years ago, and looking forward to spending a lot of time up here doing well again.